You have to give it up, exactly. All right, people. Let me get my little notes out here. Thanks. All right, so a few weeks ago, Tim asked some of us leaders to give him a list of fears we have and that he was going to take those as ideas for sermon starters. So, I mean, if I'm going super basic, my beginning list really is thunderstorms. I hate thunderstorms, but you don't have a whole lot of like meaty youth group leading from thunderstorms. So one of the ones I wrote back to him was the fear of failures, or the fear of failure, not fear of failures. So that is one that I have. I don't like the idea of failing. If I do something, I want to do it well. I want to succeed. I am used to succeeding, I guess, so I don't like to fail. Any of you guys like that? No? You like to fail? That is unfortunate. So good luck with your life, man. All right, but the fear of failure can mean a couple different things. So when I started thinking about this, like, he actually texted me back, was like, what exactly do you mean by that? And I was like, well, I don't know exactly. So I had to think about it a little bit. Because, I mean, in just words, the fear of failure means you're going to screw up, you're going to fail. But I think there's some more to it. So I broke it down a little bit here. So sometimes the fear of failure is like super basic. It can just be like, I think I will fail at this and I'm afraid to look stupid. Any of you guys afraid to look dumb? All right, yeah, I don't like to look dumb. I want to look like I know what I'm doing no matter what I'm doing. Even when I'm standing up here right now, I want to make sure that I look like I know what I'm doing. I'm a teacher. I stand in front of you people and teach and talk every day. That's something that I do, and I feel like I don't look too dumb. But when I'm up here, I'm not used to holding a microphone, and literally I was thinking, like, how am I going to hold this microphone? Because usually I just talk. So I don't want to look dumb. People don't want to do that. So we all think about what other people think about us. If you're one of those people who claim you don't care, it's because you care that everybody knows that you don't care. You realize that, right? So we all care what other people think about us. So I can stand in front of a crowd like this and talk to you guys, no problem. I don't have that kind of fear. Some people have public speaking fear. I don't have that. I have talk to small people fear. Not small people. That sounds like their actual size. Let's try again. Small groups of people fear. I do not do well talking to small groups of people. It freaks me out. I don't like it. If I have to talk to a small group of people, I get all sweaty. My brain gets all combobulated and I say dumb things. Like when I check out at a store or something and they say like, here's your change, I say thanks you too and stuff. Like I get all weird and do dumb things. So I don't like it. So here's a fear for you with this whole fear of failure thing, feeling dumb. The very first day of school this year, we have a new principal this year at my school. She's one of our assistant principals. She's the head principal now. And so I knew things were going to be a little bit different. We walked into school the very first day as teachers because, you know, we teachers had to go to school before you do, right? We have to work a couple days before you all do. So we walked in the very first day, and we went into this room. We sat down. Every table, or every chair had a different little colored piece of paper on it, and each piece of paper had a conversation starter on it. And right away, I was like, I will die today. This will be the end of my life. I immediately got fearful, like, what is this going to do? Because I know I'm not good in that kind of situation. I knew what was coming up. So she was like, now just take that card and just sit it on your lap. We'll worry about it later. And she started talking about other things. I literally was sitting there. You ever get so nervous you actually feel your armpits like you can feel yourself sweat? Like, I was sitting there doing nothing else but thinking about this little card. I'm like, this is going to be the death of me. So about halfway through the morning, she's like, all right, now it's time for cards. What we're going to do, each one of these has a conversation started. We got a lot of new teachers in the building. So when I say go, you're going to find the other person who has the same color card as yours, and you're going to read the question, and you're going to have a conversation and get to know the new teachers. So I feared my failure at this because I knew that I was going to get all nervous. I was going to say dumb things. I was going to like stare at the floor. I knew it was going to be bad. So when she said, all right, go, I literally just walked out the door. I just went outside. I was like, bye. Didn't do it at all. I pretended like I had to go to the bathroom, but I didn't. I just walked away. I spent like 10 minutes in the hallway, saw one of our secretaries like, what are you doing? I was like, avoiding talking to people because I was fearful that I was going to fail at that. Now, obviously, I'm an adult. I had the upper hand. I've taught at my school for 20 years, and these are new like infants teachers that are just coming out of college that I had the upper hand, but still, I feared that I was going to look dumb, and I was just like, boink, I was out of there. Any of you guys relate to that? Maybe not to that level, all right? So there's my I'm afraid I'll look stupid fear. Another one is a little bit deeper. I am self-sabotaging. What I mean by that is I think I'll fail at this, so I'm not even going to try. You guys ever have that? All right. So whenever we try new things, we put ourselves out there, we're going to risk failing. But failing doesn't feel good, but being stagnant and complacent doesn't feel good either. So we have to think about that and weigh things. Sometimes I'm really good at getting in my own way. If I know something's going to be hard, and I fear failing so much, I start to throw stumbling blocks in my own way. So that way, if I screw up, I can say, oh, it was because of that block, not because I failed. It's kind of like self-preservation. I can blame something else instead of that. So Jack mentioned a little bit there, I am a competitive cosplayer, which is a weird thing to say as a 40-year-old man, that I literally go around the country and dress up and compete for prizes and stuff. But that's what I do. So there was a real big contest here just a couple weekends ago in San Diego that I got accepted into. And it was a contest that you had to apply, and hundreds of people applied across the country. They selected a few people, and then they flew you to San Diego, and you competed on this big stage, and yada, yada, yada. So once you applied, they told you about a month out whether you got in or not. So I got the acceptance letter about a month before the show was going to happen, and I was like, yeah, I was super excited. And some of my other friends, I've made friends across the country, mostly they're internet friends across the country that are other costumers. And some of them I found out they got into and stuff. There was 17 of us that got accepted into the competition. So I was like, yeah, that's awesome, we're going to do this. So then I started looking at their feeds, and like Jack said, social media is the devil, but I dance with the devil already. I'm in it. If you are not in it, stay away. But I started watching their social media feeds and stuff, and they were talking about how, oh yeah, I got into this big costume contest, and I've been adding all these extra details. So one of my friends, she started adding lights to her costume. She started adding smoke machines to her costume. Another one of my friends that I know of, he was like, all right, I have these wings on my costume. I'm going to add motors to it and make the motors move and stuff. And it started stressing me out. I was like, my gosh, these people are adding all this stuff to it. And I was like, maybe I should add stuff to my costume. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, if I try my hardest and I put forth my very best and then I still fail, then it's all my fault. I did the best I could do. And I still failed. I wasn't down with that. So I did absolutely nothing. I had a list of things that I knew I needed to do, but I was like, nope, not going to do that. On my costume, I have an undersuit, and there's a Band-Aid that I had to sew onto it. It's a character that has bandages and stuff onto her. And the first time I wore the costume, when I wore it, I popped some of those threads, and I knew that bandage was just hanging like a limp, bandage hanging there. That was very good simile. The bandage was hanging like a limp bandage. Very good. Anyway, I knew it was that way. I knew I needed to fix it. I was just like, no. I just refused to fix it because I knew that if I put forth my full effort and I tried all I could do and I still didn't do well, then I would blame myself. It's like I did everything I did. I was fearful that I would fail. But if I didn't do that, then I failed, and I could say, if only I would have had time to sew on that Band-Aid, I would have won. So that's self-sabotaging. It's throwing things in my own way just to make it feel better if I fail. All right? So I hope you guys can relate to those fears, but we're here at church, so what does God have to say about those fears? I think it's more important to see what he does. So in both of my examples, I let my fears get in the way of what should have happened or what would have been best. So in the New Testament, there is a book called Hebrews. It is a letter that is written to the Christians in the early church. It's kind of like a pep talk to all the Christians of the early church. Chapter 11 is one that's called the Hall of Faith. Instead of the Hall of Fame, it's the Hall of Faith. And it's a whole bunch of people that were really big in faith through the Old Testament and talking about how we can take inspiration from them. So I'll give you it's a really long chapter. So I'm going to give you the short version. It was by faith that Abel brought an acceptable offering to God. It was by faith that Enoch was taken into heaven, that Noah built an ark, that Abraham left his homeland, that Sarah had a baby in her old age, that Moses left Pharaoh's protection and led the Israelites out of slavery. The Israelites walked through the Red Sea, that Rahab was not destroyed with Jericho. So it has a whole bunch of things through the Old Testament that you've probably learned in VBS and Up with Missy and things like that. All these Old Testament big stories that were big pillars of faith. But then it ends with verses 32 through 40. So I'm going to read 32 through 40 here. So how much more do I need to say? It would take too long to recount the stories of faith of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and all of the prophets. By faith, these people overthrew kingdoms, ruled with justice, and received what God had promised them. They shut the mouths of lions, quenched the flames of fire, and escaped death by the edge of the sword. Their weakness was turned to strength. They became strong in battle and put whole armies to fight. Women received their loved ones back again from death, but others were tortured, refusing to turn from God in order to be set free. They placed their hope in a better life after the resurrection. Some were jeered at, some had their backs cut open with whips, others were chained in prisons. Some died by stoning, others were killed with a sword. Some went about wearing skins of sheep and goats, destitute and oppressed and mistreated. They were too good for this world, wandering over deserts and mountains, hiding in caves and holes in the ground. All of these people earned a good reputation because of their faith. Yet none of them received all that God had promised, for God had something better in mind for us, so that they would not reach perfection without us. All right, so there's plenty of examples that stood out there, and not everything went good for them. Did you hear that? Like, there was some bad stuff that happened to them, but it was all because of their faith that they were successful in the end. So one example that stood out to me that says all the prophets, and when I think about fear of failure, the prophet Jonah comes to mind. You guys remember Jonah and the whale and all that good stuff, or the big fish? All right, so God asked him to go to Nineveh to ask the people to change their ways. The people in Nineveh were doing bad stuff. Jonah was scared for a couple reasons. He had fear. He was fearful that they wouldn't want to hear it and they would just run him out of town. Like, can you imagine showing up to a class full of hoodlums and being the only student that comes in and says, guys, we should really do better? What are they going to do to you? Yeah, they're going to eat you alive, right? They're not going to have good words for you. So he was fearful of that. He was also fearful that God would, be nice to them, because he was kind of mad at them. You ever catch your brother or sister doing something bad and you tell on them, and then your parents are nice to them and give them grace, and you're like, well, that was dumb. I wanted my mom to get mad at them. So he was a little fearful of that as well. Anyway, he let his fears get in the way. So what did he do instead of going there? Give him his Bible school time. What did he do? He ran. What else? He hopped on a boat, and then what happened there? There you go. He got eaten by a whale. Not good times, right? So he went the wrong way. Bad things happened to him. So he screwed up. He was afraid. He failed. He questioned God. In the end, though, the whale barfed him back up. He went and did what he was supposed to. And the people of Nineveh changed their ways. They went back. They were like, you're right. We are doing wrong things. We went the other way. So it ended up good for the people. All right? So in your small groups, you're going to get to read part of Corinthians that I really love. It's basically a group of verses that says God chooses the screw-ups to do great things because choosing the successful will be way too easy and obvious. So if you're fearful of failure, God is really good at choosing those of us who fail and rage against anyway. All right? So that really helps kind of calm my fear of failing. All righty? So here in a little bit, we're going to go into small groups. Maybe as you're thinking right now, you can think about ways that you have avoided failure in the past, whether it is just not doing something at all because you're scared you're failing, whether it's putting stumbling blocks in your own way so that way you can blame them. All right? But you'll get to expand on that some more with your small group people. All right? So I'm going to give a prayer here, and then Jack is going to come up and break us into our groups. All right?